Cowboys Nation. How the hell y'all feeling right now?
Yo, this is Neville Gallimore from the Dallas Cowboys, and I want to give a major shout out to Mike Tag. Keep bringing the hype to the Cowboys Nation. We love and appreciate it. Now, can you dig it?
What is up, Cowboys Nation? It's your boy Mike Tag here. We're going to be joined by a few special people. One of them being Kelly. There he is. He's been working on the internet. You know how he goes. But we've got a very, very special show tonight. I've been excited all day. It's been like Christmas, waiting to get to this time because it's going to be a lot of fun. And Saturday can't get here soon enough because we're going to be honoring one of the great all-time coaches, Hall of Famer Jimmy Johnson. He's even more special in my heart because I'm a Hurricane, and I saw what he did and left his mark there. So if you guys are just tuning in, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, because I'm probably not going to say it no more because we're going to be talking so much about Jimmy Johnson and getting this thing rolling. But first, Kelly, are you working good? The internet's good? You're feeling good?
I'm working good. I think the internet is fine. I think it's this 1985 laptop that I'm trying to work from that was not good. So I had to switch it over to the phone, man. So you guys have to pardon the interruption, but I wasn't gonna miss this, man, and not with my boy Jimmy. Jimmy Johnson, man. This is gonna be a great show. I'm looking forward to it. Very excited. A lot of nostalgia, a lot of great memories, and I'm ready to get into it, man.
We won't waste no more time. So first, I got to introduce, because the next guest is going to understand where I'm coming from, the second person I introduced. But this is my man, Greg. We go way back. I always said he's my brother from another mother because not only is he a Cowboys fan, he's a Miami Hurricane fan. So there's a reason that he's here to make sure that I know things didn't work out great for us today, but Jimmy Johnson did leave a big impact in Miami, and Greg has a bad man cave. So for visual purposes, you got to bring him in. So, Greg, how are you doing today?
Good, man. How you and Kelly doing, man?
We are doing good. Getting ready. We're getting ready. So now we got to bring in the man of the hour. Now, this guy is special to my heart. I always joke with him. I said, you know what? You had me on your show when you had like 230 subscribers. Now you've blown up, but you still show love to Mike Tag. He's a great friend of mine, and he's a huge Cowboy fan. The only smear that he has is he's a Florida State fan. So that's why, Greg, we're going to make sure we got the numbers, and we bring in Jay Tuck. How you doing today, Jay Tuck?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good today, man. Like, honestly, to see Miami lose today to Rutgers puts a smile on my face because I know Saturday when we're going to be out there at the stadium, you and, Greg and you guys, the Miami fans, going to get your lick back when my Florida State Seminoles probably get dog walked by 100 to Georgia.
Wow, like this game, we're not going to talk about. I mean, most of our guys are out. Your guys, you got like 14 or 15 guys out. It's
22 as of today. 22 as of today. So I was like, hell, I mean, I should have went down there to play in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's going to be great. So we'll get the quick things out of the way because we got a lot to cover. But if you don't know where Jay Tuck's at, you must be living under a rock. But Jay Tuck, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? So, of course, you can find me on all social media platforms at JTuck151. My YouTube channel, of course, CFO Sports. We do a lot of Dallas Cowboys content, but we're starting to rev up draft season wise and do a lot of draft content. So even if you're not a Cowboys fan, come on through because you're going to learn a lot about these upcoming draft prospects. But for Cowboys Nation, we're focusing on playoffs and also getting this win on Saturday versus the Detroit Lions.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And Greg, besides the bad man cave and the unbelievable stuff you do, where can everyone find you? This guy's unbelievable on TikTok, Tuck. I'm just telling you now.
TikTok.
He's on Reels. What's up, Greg? Where can they find you?
You can find me on TikTok, man, at Gregory Gerard 146, and on IG at G2GGN, and Twitter when I am on there playing on it, is at G Gerard, at G Greg Gerard. Yeah.
There you go. Well, TikTok's where it's at. We're gonna get you blown up on Twitter. I'm on TikTok a little bit, but it's too crazy. So let's just get into it. We're talking about Jimmy Johnson finally getting a Ring of Honor. I think all of us in the community have been preaching and been crying about this and screaming and stomping our feet. So it happened. So I guess the first thing I want to ask, and I'll start with Kelly, then we'll go down to Greg and Tuck, you finish it up, is when you heard the news, was it shocking? Was it, hey, you figured it was coming? I mean, what was your initial reaction? Because I know where mine was, and I'll say it at the end.
I mean, it was emotional for me, man, because I felt like that it was going to be coming sooner or later. But I mean, it's been so long, right? And I feel like that the fans have definitely had something to do with it, because I mean, I feel like Jerry gets that question constantly. Like if you ask Jerry how many times he's been asked that question, I bet you he couldn't count, he couldn't count it, because the fans that have grown up in that era of Jimmy and then the Super Bowls and stuff, we know how much he meant to this franchise, and he catapulted this franchise into a whole nother stratosphere. So when I heard the news, like when I saw that he was there at that game, I remember thinking, okay. And then they said there was a special announcement. I'm like, I already knew it. I'm like, all right, I know what this is. But I still remember driving in my car and I'm going on the way to watch this Cowboys game, and I got it on my cell phone. And I'm watching, and still I found myself getting choked up and like overly emotional hearing this, seeing those two talk to each other and knowing that, Jimmy's finally getting his flowers. He's getting into the Ring of Honor with the Dallas Cowboys, taking his rightful place in the ring. And he should have been there so much longer ago. But you know what? Better late than never. We're getting him in there now. So it was just a lot of joy for me, man, just to see that happen, man. It means a lot.
No, awesome. And Greg, what was your first thoughts when you heard the news?
About time. That was the first thing. About time. And I tell you, man, Jerry, if it wasn't for his ego, he would have been in there long, long time ago. But when I heard it, I was like K9 too, man. It almost brought a tear to my eye, just like when he got when he was surprised and notified that he was going in the Hall of Fame. That kind of choked me up watching that on Fox pregame. But it's about time, man. And then I went back to memory, way back in the 80s, because I'm being a Hurricanes fan and watching Jimmy Johnson. And I remember some of the times watching them coach and watching Irvin and all the players. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, if some of these players could only go to Dallas Cowboys, man. And if we ever had a coach like Jimmy Johnson, and it blew my mind years later when all of a sudden, here comes Michael Irvin, and I was in Miami area at the time and saw him on Channel 10 News come out of his house, sticking his head out, talking about, we're going to the Super Bowl. And then a couple of years later, here comes Jimmy Johnson. I'm saying, oh, man, I can't believe this. I can't believe this is happening. So when he finally got, when Jerry Jones finally told him, you're going to be in a Ring of Honor on that field, first of all, I want to be honest with you. First, I want to punch Jerry Jones in the throat and say, man, look, it's about time you came out with this. But I was so happy for Jimmy Johnson, man. And then I told my wife, I said, soon as they make that icon up there at Frisco with Jimmy Johnson on it, we got to go up there. We got to go up there and see it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's awesome. Tuck, I think I might have texted you when this happened, but what was your first thoughts?
Man, I was all disoriented because I remember we were getting ready for a game. I think I just wrapped up a live stream. So I went upstairs to grab some food. I come downstairs and I see Jerry and Jimmy talking, but I thought it was like something old from the Hall of Fame thing. So I was like, okay, no problem. So I'm running back upstairs to get a drink. And something stopped me and said, whoa, that was kind of new. So I went back downstairs and looked, and it said that Jimmy Johnson will be in the Ring of Honor versus the Detroit Lions game. And the very first thing I did, Mike, was pull my tickets that I had for sale versus the Lions game, because I wasn't planning on attending because, it's the New Year holiday. So that's the very first thing I did, man. But it was a sigh of relief. And I tell a lot of Cowboys fans this, we all bleed, blue and silver. And I've always said the one thing that I could probably just rail my fandom is if something, God forbid, unfortunate was to happen to Jimmy Johnson and he never got in his ring, I don't think I would have ever been able to forgive Jerry Jones and the organization. That probably been my, my dark days. And so just to see it actually happen and be so close, it feels like, it sounds sad, Cowboys Nation, but it feels like we got a Super Bowl coming up because I'm like nervous. I'm antsy. I'm flying out to Dallas in the morning. I leave at 5 a.m. Like, I am so on fire for this game, but it couldn't happen to a more deserving person when it comes to Jimmy Johnson, because I'm here because of Jimmy Johnson. If we don't have that dynasty in the 90s, who knows what fan base I'm probably representing, probably been like San Francisco or something, so like Jimmy Johnson was the guy who really orchestrated everything that we see here today. And for him to finally be honored, I'm excited, man. I keep asking Cowboys fans, are we gonna cry? I'm gonna cry halftime. Like, let's just, I'm gonna try to keep it tough. Man. I'm gonna go ahead and cry.
I'm gonna get you to cry during the show. I'm gonna get you to cry during the show. But
I worry about crying because they'll probably put the camera right on me when I'm crying. I'll end up being like a national meme or something, So
yeah.
But it's gonna be an emotional day Saturday.
No, it will, and it's funny. I was in Carolina, and my son texted me. First thing I did, I thought I texted you and just said, "Hey, man, is that true?" Because I was up there, but I took my tickets off. Wasn't planning on going to this game, and I said, "There's just absolutely no way I'm going to find a way to get there." And I got an early flight because you got to get the cheapest one. So I might meet you if you're flying into Love. I'm going to be there at about 6:30 in the morning, 7:30,
okay.
whatever.
Yeah, I get there like at 7. So yeah.
Yeah, it's early. It's early. So but it was such a relief, and Jimmy Johnson. Everything with the Cowboys, and we're going to get into it. And I've got some very special messages from his former players and coaches and stuff like that. We're going to kind of play them throughout the show, so make sure you guys check those out. It's going to be a lot of fun. But the one thing I wanted to ask, and I wasn't sure your age, Jay Tuck, and I talked to Kelly, and he was too young. So if it's too young, then I'll defer away from you. But 1988, at the end of the season, when Jerry Jones buys a team, he lets go of Tom Landry, and then they obviously hired Jimmy Johnson. Were you too young for that?
I was too young, but my dad, who you met, and my uncles, they tell me that story because, like, my dad and my uncles, they're huge Cowboys haters because of what happened to Tom Landry. So they were like, that's so they turned on the team. They were done. So when I go to like family reunions and everything, like, I was a Cowboys fan until they fired Tom Landry. Like, still to this day, like, firing Tom Landry was always that trigger. But I my birthday's coming up next month, but I was only like 4 years old.
Okay, so so you were too young. So I'll tell my quick story. Greg, you and I probably can give a little story. I was only 13, so I was a little older, but I was a fanatic Cowboy fan, even at a very, very young age. I was upset. I was pissed off. Now, understand, Jimmy Johnson was at Miami, but I wasn't as big into Miami as I was the Cowboys. And Tom Landry was kind of the iconic figure, and as a kid, it was, just someone like I hate to use the word God, but that's what he felt like to a little kid with the hat and everything. And I wrote a letter to Jerry Jones, and I'll remember to this day, and I wish, maybe Jerry read it, maybe he did, but I said, and I was wrong when I said this, but I said that Jimmy Johnson couldn't hold Landry's jockstrap. That's the only thing I remember as a kid. They always used to say that in sports. So I wrote a letter, hated it, and boy, was I wrong. So I apologize. I've apologized 100 million times, but that was my first thought when it happened. But Greg, you're a little older than me, so you probably remember that day very well.
Guys, I'm gonna tell you, I am the grandfather of the group. I was 28.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to the Cowboys when I was 5 years old. So I remember Meredith and all of those guys. But when that happened, you talking about somebody that was mad. I was on fire. Tom Landry to go out being disrespected the way he was going out, to be fired the way he was fired, no ceremony, no pompous and circumstances, just out. That told me right then, somebody arrogant coming in the organization has no clue about what he's doing, and he's letting this guy go out that the world knows is one of the most famous, well-respected coaches to ever live, and then you just dish him out like that. And I was hurt. I was mad, but I wasn't going to ever turn against my Cowboys now. No way was that going to happen. But I was really mad. And for that first season, when we went, I think it was like 1-15 or something like that.
1-15.
I was upset at the Cowboys, but I'm sitting there saying, that's what you get. That's what you get. You shouldn't have never let Tom Landry go the way you did. And then years later, he finally admitted it and came back and gave the man his props. But now he's gone, So, in one hand, I like what Jerry Jones has done for the organization. Yeah, I can't deny that. But on the other hand, it's not like he's one of my favorite Cowboys either, because that stain is still there and it's going to hurt for a long, long time.
Yeah. Well, and I learned to get over it about 92. I kind of, about 91, really. That's when I got over it real quick. But looking at 89, I mean, here's a ticket stub. Their only win. Someday I'm going to get Jimmy Johnson to sign this for me. He got his one win, and it had to be against the Washington Redskins of all teams. Do you guys know who the quarterback was of his very first win?
I do not.
All right.
Quarterback for the Cowboys?
Who was it?
You said quarterback for the Cowboys?
Who was the quarterback for the Cowboys in his first win?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
All right. Well,
Troy Aikman, wasn't it?
No, it goes back to a hurricane. He was a national championship quarterback.
I know who that is.
And he has a special message. He said he wanted to give a special message to Jimmy Johnson on his day, and we'll talk a little bit about it.
Hi, guys. This is Steve Walsh, Dallas Cowboys, 1989. I want to congratulate Jimmy Johnson on being inducted into the Ring of Honor. 5 rings now for Jimmy, so he's going to have to change the name of his boat. Anyways, standing in my high school where I coach high school football up in Minnesota, and my Dallas days are commemorated on our Hall of Fame right there. I had somebody earlier say that was Troy Aikman, but anyways, congratulations, Jimmy. We love you, and thanks for everything you did for me at the University of Miami and the Dallas Cowboys.
So Steve Walsh, I mean,
nice.
It was, you love him in Miami. The interesting thing, and this is, Tuck, and Tuck is the draft wizard. He's the draft guru. He knows it. The thing I think that made Jimmy Johnson so special, and we'll get into it, is his drafting and finding talent, and really not only that, but using draft picks to think ahead. Mm-hmm. And if you remember back in the 89 draft, first round pick was Troy Aikman. Won the supplement. They had that supplemental draft. They still have it now, but it's not as big. But he ended up getting Steve Walsh and created a lot of controversy in that first year. And it was like, Steve Walsh was this guy who won a national title with. I mean, what are they going to do? And he ended up using that, parlaying Steve Walsh, trading him to New Orleans and getting 2 first-round draft picks, at the end of the season. So he was always thinking ahead. And if you read his book, that's one thing he always talked about is draft and how to accumulate talent. And he knew the talent that he had in Dallas wasn't going to get it done. And in order to expedite the process, he had to use those draft picks. So I just think it was one of those unique things with Jimmy Johnson in that 89 year and how they used everything. But couldn't believe that there was a quarterback controversy with Troy Aikman and Steve Walsh. How about that? Right. What would that be like today in Twitter?
Yeah.
That would be chaos, like man. We should have never got rid of Walsh.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Greg, you were back in that time. I mean, any memories of Steve Walsh and really that 89 season was so dismal. Thankfully, Kelly and Tuck were too young. They didn't have to live through that. That was probably the lowest point as a Cowboy fan. But any thoughts on that 89 season?
Yeah. One of the smart things that Jimmy did, Jimmy brought some Hurricanes with him.
He did.
He brought Kevin Williams with him. He brought some Hurricanes with him because he knew if we're going to win, and Jerry Jones let him do it. Good, thank you. And he let him do it. He brought some Hurricanes with him, and they brought that attitude and that desire there. And Steve Walsh, I remember him quarterbacking for the Cowboys back then, and he was pretty decent. But still, we had those aging players on the team back then. A lot of people don't realize some of those aging players have been around for a long time. They were still on the Dallas Cowboys. They were limping. They were barely moving. They were geriatric, because Tom Landry wasn't that modern coach. And he just thought I can keep the same players, do the same thing for a long time. And Jerry came in and changed the face of the Cowboys. He had over 56 different drafts or moves or trades within 2 years that made a big, huge difference on that team. And Walsh coming from the Hurricanes, I was like, okay, man, we got Walsh, we got some Hurricane players, we got Kevin Williams here, Michael Irvin's already there. I said, oh man, we're just gonna have the Hurricanes on the field. And they played well. It's just they weren't cohesive, and those old players on the team couldn't keep up with them. and people were getting frustrated, and that's why they went 1-15. But that next year, Jimmy almost had a clean sweep.
Yeah.
And he was able to do that. And once he got that clean sweep, the Cowboys were on the road, man. And you can see it coming. It was 7-9 that year. And then the next year, 11-5 playoffs. I said, uh-oh, here we go. Here we go. We're rising again, man. And all I could think about was the days of Roger Staubach, Drew Pearson, Billy Joe Dupree, Scott Laidlaw, all those guys. I said, man, we about to start all over again with a whole new cast of characters, and they're going to bring that dream back. So I was excited.
Yeah. And talk really, for you looking at these are just some of the key guys, contributors for the Cowboys. 89, you get Troy Aikman, Stepnoski, Moose, and Tolbert. I mean, 4 impact players in the draft that obviously were impactful on the Super Bowl teams. And 91 to what Greg said, you got to get some Hurricanes. Now, Michael Irvin always said you can never have enough Hurricanes. And I always say the problem with the Cowboys, now we got no Hurricanes.
Got no Hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
No Hurricanes and Rolls.
But getting Russell Maryland, Alvin Harper, Dixon Edwards, Eric Williams, Leon Lett, Larry Brown. I mean, these are all pillars of what made the dynasty what they were. Then obviously in 90, the year before, they got Emmitt Smith, Jimmy Jones, and Kenny Gant. Kenny Gant is one of those forgotten guys. He was impactful on the team, not only with special teams, but in the secondary, he had he made some key plays in big games for the Cowboys. So the drafting of Jimmy Johnson as being the draft guru like you are, Tuck. I mean, have you looked back to any of the point system that he created and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I really looked back to last year, actually, when Gil Brandt passed away as well, because, Gil Brandt was someone who was kind of a scout for the Dallas Cowboys who pretty much revolutionized the way we see things still to this day. And so, what people are seeing right there, Cowboys Nation, is what we think that we're doing right now, but we really aren't. Well, we're actually drafting guys to really build our foundation. And that's just a testament to how Jimmy Johnson and, Gil Brandt really went out there and scouted and got those guys. But the most important thing that Jimmy Johnson did that a lot of people don't understand, back then players were a little bit different, had a little bit different temperament. So to be able to handle those different personalities and some of those loud personalities and really get them to gel and become a team, because like you guys just said, coming off a 1-win season, brand new coach, things are kind of turmoil in Dallas, right? He really got them to buy in, and by getting the buy-in, that dynasty. And that's just a testament to the swagger, they'll say, that Jimmy Johnson brought, but you said what him and Gil did, they really revolutionized the game with the trading system and different things of value and prospects. And now we see all sorts of charts all day online, but that's pretty much them from back then, from the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. And I want to play one more video, and Kelly, want to get your opinion on it. And you guys, this is, and what I did was I reached out to a lot of players, and I just, I'm a salesman. I said, hey, right. Show. I said, it's Jimmy Johnson. I'd love to see if you guys can just give a thanks and really maybe send a special message with the hopes that, hopefully Jimmy Johnson gets to see this and sees the impact that he had on his players. And here's one that probably had the most impact on, but he goes back. He was part of the 89 draft class, and he shares a story about the way Jimmy was and the way he set the tone. And I think, to Tuck, to your point, and to Kelly and Greg, we've talked about the way Jimmy Johnson was. He was all in his mentality. But listen to this one. It's pretty good.
Hey, Coach, congratulations. What a great honor. Long overdue and well-deserved. So happy that you're going to be part of the Ring of Honor for the Dallas Cowboys moving forward. Fantastic. Sharing stories, always time to reminisce on days like this. One of my favorite, probably under the radar a little bit, but it was when we were at training camp down in Austin, Texas, and those those could be some challenging days. And we went to our union representation and asked Bill Bates to go have a conversation with you. And Bill brought it to your attention that per union rules, we were supposed to be afforded 1 day off every week away from football, free of football. And your response to Bill was, Bill, I'm well aware of that. And as soon as the union comes down here and tells me I can't do this any longer, you'll get that day off. But until then, we're going to practice every day and continue to get better. And boy, those were the days that built that team and made it possible for us to have back-to-back Super Bowl championships under your coaching tenure. So again, congratulations, Coach. Well-deserved, long overdue. So happy for you. Wish we could be there. Take care.
So, I mean, Moose Johnston, I mean, you don't get much better than that with the Cowboys, but talking about the mentality, I don't know if that worked today. I don't know if that works in today's
No
football.
Oxnard back then, you know.
but I get Kelly to jump in. I mean, what's your thought? I mean, that's just old school mentality, but he knew what he had to do to change the culture, to get this team where it needed to go, and he was all in. He wanted to get there in a hurry, and he had to take these kind of measures.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jimmy was a different kind of coach in a different era, you know. And you look at it now, and you kind of wonder. You say, would Jimmy's style translate with some of these new players, and some of them, you know, some of the mentalities that you see are just a little bit softer than, you know. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just kind of how things have changed, times have changed, eras change, you know. That's how it happens. But Jimmy was the right guy for the right team at the right time, and he really just knew how to, you know, like Tuck said, and mold those personalities, and kind of get all those guys to gel together, and to be the best, and to kind of touch on what you guys were talking about when you showed all those names of all the guys that Jimmy was able to acquire through drafts. You know, one of the common misconceptions, and I hear this on Twitter all the time and most of these people are non-Cowboys fans, but some of them are Cowboys fans. They tend to think that Jerry bought these Super Bowls.
Right.
And there couldn't be anything further from the truth. Those Super Bowls weren't bought. Those Super Bowls were earned by Jimmy because of the talent he was able to bring in through the draft. Because when you look at the names on that list, those are guys that were brought in through the draft. Those weren't guys that were paid for. Those aren't guys that we had to buy to win a Super Bowl. Those were guys that were brought in here. And then Jimmy made that collection of, you know, talent work on the field and won Super Bowls. So for those people that, you know, that don't know that, or that they buy into that misconception that, you know, just because the Cowboys have a lot of money that we bought Super Bowls, the Cowboys didn't have money back then like we do today. Right. Jerry was building that brand. Well, the brand that you see today is because of those Super Bowls that were won back there, and because of the hard work of Jimmy Johnson and the work that he did with that team to put those teams into the position to win those Super Bowls. So I just feel like a lot of that gets lost on the people that weren't around during that time and didn't see that all kind of take place and take shape. So, I mean, you know, Jimmy is, you talk to people, we've talked to several different, you know, players, coaches, stuff like that. They talk about Jimmy and they say, hey, there's a football mind. He's like the beautiful mind when it comes to football. And that's Jimmy, man. He's just one hell of a football coach, man. Wish he could have stuck around for more than 5 years though.
Man. Yeah. And I just real quick and want to get with Greg and then talk we're going to get it. He has a 5-year guy. If you look at his track record, I think I just think he burns himself out. And I think, you know, he did it in Miami. He did it in Dallas. I think he did it at Oklahoma State. And then I think it was 4 years in Miami. But it's just, I think he ran hard. And I think that's why he had just such a just no nonsense mentality. I got to get it done. I got to get it done fast because I don't think I'm going to be here, you know, for the long term. But just my thoughts. But Greg, anything to add?
Yeah, you know, Jimmy, I wish he had been there a couple of more years too, because when we won that last Super Bowl, that was basically his team. That was his team. I mean, what's his name? Barry Switzer even admitted that, look, I didn't really coach this team. The team coached themselves. They used that same mentality and foresight that Jimmy Johnson had embedded into them. And they just went on and picked up and went from there and took themselves through the playoffs, took themselves through the Super Bowl. Troy Aikman took over as captain, and then the triplets got together and made sure that they covered the bases with all the players to keep them motivated. And that's how they won that last championship. And a lot of people were talking about you can't do that these days. Of course you can't do that these days. There's a whole different generation of players out there. You know, these are kids that grew up not listening to the parents. These are kids that grew up where the parents weren't, most of the parents weren't even there in the household for them. You know, the grandmothers were raising them. And when you try to tell them no, it wasn't going to happen. So it was a whole different generation of players that are playing now that type of coaching won't work. And somebody mentioned, look at Sean Payton, what he's doing with the Broncos. You know, Sean Payton is trying to put a square peg in a round hole over there with that old mentality because he was on our staff back then during that time. And it's just eventually he's going to burn himself out because those players aren't going to accept that. And and you can't bring back that type of generational coaching today. But Jimmy Johnson, to me, had the most amazing foresight, one-of-a-kind vision that won't be duplicated for a long time, man. And that's why when people ask, hey, Jimmy, why don't you come back? Well, you know, that time has passed. Jimmy's burnt out from that. He knows it. Jimmy knows he can't come back and capture that glory, especially with this generation of players. And Jimmy loves being on his boat. He loves being in South Florida, down in Miami, you know, in the Keys. Jimmy's happy, and I'm happy for Jimmy.
Yeah. And I just want to add something. I want maybe you want to touch on, Tuck, or add whatever you want. But I always hear that with Jimmy Johnson. There's always haters. Oh, the era. Oh, he couldn't. I mean, the coaches that he was against. Let's just run him down. And just in the division, Bill Parcells, Joe Gibbs, Buddy Ryan.
Right.
You know, in the early, you know, before he got fired. I mean, he was going against Hall of Fame coaches in his division. Mm-hmm. And I just think that, you know, people just don't understand how good the NFC East was in that time to win Super Bowls. That it was no easy task, but anything to add to the conversation? Sure.
Yeah, and like you all said, like Jimmy was trying to get things done quickly. So sometimes you can't pamper some of these players, right? So you have to come in and change the culture. And I always preach this. NFL teams, just any sports team, right? They always kind of mirror their coach, their leader. And I think that was the biggest thing when it came to the Cowboys. Like he built this team in his identity. Like we always say, the swagger, the confidence, the cockiness. Like people don't understand, like a lot of the younger Cowboys fans, like we were just the arrogant showboating, we're gonna line up behind this offensive line and run the ball down your throat with Emmitt Smith. And it's not like it was a different culture when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys back then and what we see today, which is why, Kelly, we're always so vocal about what we see at AT&T Stadium, because it wasn't like this. And when we knew the Dallas Cowboys, we knew what their identity was, and that was due to the coaching and the philosophy of Jimmy Johnson, because we know some of our players, they had off the field stuff. Like you couldn't panhandle some of these guys. Like you had to go out there and really be tough and be stern and be kind of cutthroat. But like you said, Mike, the division was difficult back then. There wasn't no cakewalk. There wasn't no easy, Washington Commanders, freebie games. Like everyone had high quality talent in the NFC East, and you had to earn your keep. And that's why Jimmy Johnson went out there and had to perform early and often. And I think he would have translated. I think he would translate in today's society if he had to, because his personality, we see him on TV, like he's just a people's person naturally. Now, would he be as aggressive? No, but I still think that he would be a player and a coach that players would flock to because of his personality. He kind of just has that it factor. But yeah, man, it's just, Jimmy just changed a lot in Dallas. And like I said, I'm excited to see what's going to happen on Saturday.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be electric. You were there, I think, Tuck. You were there for the Hall of Fame when he got his ring, and it was just soon as he said this. I mean, when he dropped the "How about them Cowboys," that was just it was over. So, anyways, now let's get to the good. Let's get to some fun, right? So we get through the hard times. They lay the groundwork. Now you go into the '91 season. You know, obviously we ended with disappointment, losing, but won our first playoff game since 19. I want to say it was 85. We lost to the Rams, either 20-0, 20-7, something like that. I remember that as a kid for some reason. Eric Dickerson running all over us. But we beat the Bears, and then we get blown out by the Lions. The Lions, I think, lost to Washington. Washington won the Super Bowl, if my memory's right. Yep. Opening day. I'm going off memory, so if I'm wrong, people, you guys correct me if you guys know, but in the chat, I'm sure they'll correct me. But I think opening day, 92, Cowboys played the defending Super Bowl champions. I want to say it was Monday night, and I think we put it on them. And I think that set the tone for that season. And what a season 92 was. There's so many places I could start, but I think, Kelly, you said that's kind of your early memories of the 92 season. Anything stick out to you in the 92 season?
Well, so the end of 92 is what brought me in. So that's when I first came on, because I saw the Cowboys win a Super Bowl. I was at a Super Bowl party with my mom, and I was able to watch that Super Bowl win against the Bills, and that's what brought me on. So I don't remember a ton about the 92 season. What I do remember about the Super Bowl is just watching the Cowboys. I remember hearing about the Cowboys, and I'd already started to wear Cowboys gear at that time, but we weren't catching a lot of the games at that time. I'm 12 years old. I'm doing some the kids.
You're
stuff,
focused on other stuff.
But I'll tell you this: when I saw the Cowboys and just the uniforms, and then the way that they played that Super Bowl and just completely dominated. And that, watching Emmitt Smith, I instantly fell in love with the running back position from that day, man. I saw Emmitt Smith and the way that he was on that field, and I thought, man, if I could be like any athlete out there, it was Emmitt Smith. You know what I mean? And just watching them and just their whole demeanor though about that team, like you guys have talked about, having that swag and just knowing they just knew that they were the better team that day. You could just tell that. I do remember that, is that they just felt, it's just like watching them, you could tell they knew that they were better. They were better than everybody on that team across the field from them. And that's what, and then from that moment, then going into that 93 season, that was just what you saw about the Cowboys. They just had that confidence about them. And I think that all started with Jimmy, because like Tuck said, your players, they develop the personality of their leader. So whoever's leading that team, that's what they start to, follow along with and step in line with. And they all really did, man. They stepped in line and they followed Jimmy. And still to this day, anytime you hear from any of his former players, that's why they have that utmost respect for Jimmy. Every single one of them, they have nothing but the highest praise, because they know without him, they probably wouldn't have been the players that they ended up being, because he helped them, go to that next level and play at that highest level that you can play in the NFL. So,
yeah. No, absolutely. And I want to bring up something I want Greg and Tuck to chime in. This is what I'm going to call giving hope to this Cowboys team. So we're not going to talk much about this Cowboys team this season, but here's one thing. The thing I remember is a beating that we took early in the season against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we lost 31-7, something like that. We went on to win the Super Bowl. So you guys put it however way you want, but I promise you, sometimes you could take a beating in the regular season and you get some revenge in the playoffs. And the Cowboys, the tables turned for them in the playoffs. So anyway, and the rest is history. But Tuck, any quick memories on the 92 season?
Yeah. So, going back to having training camp in Austin. So when I actually lived in Austin, I used to go to a Cowboys training camp. And I wish my grandma still had these photos of me and Troy Aikman as a little kid at Cowboys camp. But, when it comes to the 92 season, if you're a younger Cowboys fan right now, you're kind of seeing what's going on today. The Cowboys always have ham but no burger. And what I mean by that is like either the offense is up here and the defense is down here, or Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs is going crazy and the offense is down here struggling a little bit. But that 92 season, we had pretty much a top 3 offense and a top 3 defense. Like, that's how dominant that team was. I mean, I think they were like number 2 in scoring or something like that offensively. I think their defense was like number 1 or something like that in yardage. So it's like, he just had everyone gelling together, and for them to win that Super Bowl, like Kelly was kind of saying, now, did I really understand the game that was going on? Absolutely not. I was still young, just eating food at the Super Bowl party. But, Mama Tuck, you guys see at the games with me, she was fully locked in. She was ready. All systems would go, and the whole house was just Cowboy Nation. All my uncles, even the ones who kind of turned Saints fans, they were kind of the ones that left during the Landry era. That kind of, I kind of like Emmitt Smith. They're trying to come back a little bit, but it just brings back good memories. Just a tough, hard-nosed team. Of course, he had Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman, the triplets. Yeah, it's just good times, Cowboys Nation, especially with that 92 season, getting that first one, especially after how the season kind of happened the year before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Greg, you're the eldest statesman here and statesman. And so you saw the Super Bowl probably in 77, if my memory's right.
Yep.
Beat
I
the
saw every
Broncos.
one of them.
So that's a long time. So you can help us, because you're talking 77 to 92. I know that's not 30 years. That's a long time.
Yeah,
that's a long time. So how sweet was it for you to see that 92 championship?
Oh, man, it was real sweet, man, because at that time, when Dallas was winning, I was still in the Air Force at that time. So we were traveling different places. But at that time, Dallas, I saw that swag that Jimmy Johnson had employed upon the players from Miami Hurricanes. I recognized it right away. And everybody else came in and they bought in on it. And we had the swag on both sides of the ball. Defense was ferocious for the Dallas Cowboys. And the games that we lost, it wasn't because the team was really better. It's because these guys got ahead of themselves. They heads start to swell up, and they thought they can go in and just show up and beat everybody. And they just kind of got a little lackadaisical. But when they realized, okay, look, guys, we kind of getting ourselves off the ship. We need to get back on track, stay focused, because we're Hollywood right now. Everybody's loving us. Just stay focused because the prize is still ahead of us. And when we got to that playoff game, man, and once we beat the 49ers and we were going to the Super Bowl, man, I'm going to tell you, I got up. I was in Saudi Arabia. And in Saudi Arabia, the games came on like 2 or 3 in the morning. Everybody else back here, you watching it 1 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. And they said, anybody wants to see the Super Bowl, you can get up, you can take the day off, you can come down to the bunker. There was like this bunker we had on Khobar Towers, and you go up under there, had on my Cowboys hat, because I take it everywhere. My Cowboys hat, my Cowboys shirt, man, I'm sitting there saying, man, we got to win this one, we got to win this. Man, we start blowing those boys out. And to see everybody, at the beginning of it, everybody in there was crying, because you got to understand, we were military and we were a purple force, meaning we had all kind of different military services working there. So when Whitney Houston came out and sang the national anthem, man, it wasn't a dry house in there. Our salutes were all up in the air. We were proud. And then when the Dallas started putting them on them, man, I was running around those pool tables inside that bunker, man, screaming at people about them Cowboys. It was dramatic. And then the next day when I had a chance to call home and talk to my mom and my brother and all them, man, I was like, we got it, baby. We here. You're just the Cowboys, boy. I can't wait till the next one. And then what happens? Boom, back to back.
Yeah,
back to back.
We're going to get it. We're going to get into one thing. I wish I had that little. Remember I think it was in I forgot what movie it was with the Wayans brothers. Message. Every time they say something, message.
Yeah.
So just a reminder: get beat early in the season, blown out, come back redemption. You go in the NFC Championship game. You're playing the 49ers, and where was that game? It was on the road. No one thought we could win. They were the big brother, and we go in and we beat them, and the rest is history. We knew we were going to win the Super Bowl, and at that time, for those who don't know, the Super Bowl was really the NFC Championship game. It was that way for 3 years. It was whoever won the NFC Championship game that was pretty much the Super Bowl. So Jimmy Johnson, gets the Cowboys that first Super Bowl championship. All is forgiven, especially for me. All is forgiven. Could do no wrong in my eyes. But we got a message. We got one more message from a player who was on 3 of those Super Bowl championships, but he was at the first one. And we talk about the Great Wall. And who was the nastiest? Who was the nastiest offensive lineman the Cowboys had?
Was it Nate?
The
nastiest.
EW?
EW.
Okay.
You guys,
Williams.
Eric Williams.
So we got a message. This one's kind of fun. It pokes at one of our teams. So I asked him if he could, hook that up. So check this out.
Coach Jimmy Johnson, I just want to say congratulations, my friend, on being inducted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor. You were one of the best, Coach. And I remember on draft day when you called me. Growing up as a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I was looking for the Philadelphia Eagles to call me. But when I got the one and only call from the Dallas Cowboys, it was such a great thing. And I just want to congratulate you and say that I love you, Coach, and God bless you.
So I'll say this. Eagles, you got Dallas Goedert, you can have him. We got Eric Williams. I'll take that every day of the week. Yeah. So, but Eric Williams was one of the nastiest and probably would have been a Hall of Famer. For those who don't know, I know you guys know, but he was in an auto accident. I think it was after the 93 season or into the 94. I forgot which year it was, but he never was the same. Never was the same player. He still was dominant, but he was the only guy that absolutely dominated Reggie White. And that's saying something because Reggie White is probably, the greatest, if not
one of the GOATs,
top 3 of all time. But Eric Williams, he hated, and Reggie White would talk about, he hated going against Eric Williams. He was one of the best. But, talk about, again, Jimmy Johnson's draft, but just let's talk about that line that they had, the Great Wall, and just, you mentioned Nate Newton. I mean, you can't go wrong. Stepnoski, he drafted. Nate Newton was there in the Jimmy era. Eric Williams, he drafted. A couple other guys, like Giesick and Gogan. There was a few other ones that went through, and 2-A, of course. But, I mean, what What a wall to run behind.
Great wall, real great wall, and just nastiness and toughness when it comes to like just in the trenches, y'all. Like it was just different back then. And Greg said something earlier, right, about that 92 season is that, you know, some of the losses that they had, it was their ego starting to get up, starting to feel themselves, but you had a coach that could reel it back in and deflate that ego and bring them back to reality and focus on the prize. And be honest with you guys, sometimes we still struggle with that here today, so many years later. So it's just, man, it just felt different as a Cowboys fan. I felt like back then, and Greg, you could probably talk about this better than any of us. You knew what our identity was. You knew who he was as a fan base. He just knew what the Cowboys stood for. And I feel like post Jimmy Johnson, we kind of just lost a lot of that. Yeah. You know, Greg, I'm always talking about, a lot of people don't know the country or the Cowboy Stampede fight song. You know, they don't know about Crazy Ray. They don't know about some of the energy from Texas Stadium. It's just different when you go to games, and Cowboys fans like, Tuck, what are you talking about? Like, how do you not know Crazy Ray? Like that was like the official match, you know, so it's just, you know, I feel like some of those things really just got lost in transition that Jimmy and also Tom Landry just built. You know, a lot of people don't understand that we were America's team before Jerry Jones even bought the team. Like, they were already calling us America's team. He just marketed and built things up. But, you know, it's just crazy to kind of see, you know, flashes of the past, man, because like Big E, nasty. Like we see like Trent Williams in today's game. That's who Big E was. It's big, nasty, physical, didn't give a damn. And we had multiple. We had, you know, Larry Allen. We had so many across the offensive line. It just set the tone. And then you had the great Emmitt Smith running behind that, man. It was a sight to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I met Stepnoski in 2001 when I was stationed out at Travis Air Force Base, California. I went to a game, got field pass, got pictures with Stepnoski. Emmitt was there. This was, you know, we were starting to go on a decline back then. Joey Galloway was our wide receiver. Quincy Carter was our quarterback. And then we had Teague, and we had Reggie Swinson taking punt returns. Campo was the coach. And I got a few pictures. And then the kicker, number 6, he was a school teacher and came out and he was kicking.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a different time because I knew we were kind of sort of on a decline, and the stars, the triplets were kind of breaking up. Michael Irvin was gone. But going back to those days when we had the Great Wall of Dallas and what's his name, man? Bless his heart. To Duncan. I forgot him already. John Madden. John Madden used to say at the game, so, you know, it ought to be a shame. It ought to be against the law to have players that big on the line blocking out. You know, it ought to be against the law to have a line like that to block out. You know, Troy Aikman's got all day and forever to sit back there and write letters. This ought to be against the law. And I'm sitting there saying, I'm glad that Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson realized that if you give a quarterback time to go through his progressions, you can win ball games. And all of a sudden, just a few years ago, about 2-3 years ago, when we start getting that offensive line, Tyron Smith came on and those boys, I'm like, oh, Jerry is finally going back to that formula that protects the quarterbacks. That was the formula that helps us win. But now those guys, and then we were putting places by people here, back in there. But just like Tuck was saying, even though we were getting that line for everybody, all of a sudden, now the defense isn't playing as well as they should. And then all of a sudden we turn around, oh, now the offense isn't generating the points as we should. And then it started to balance a little bit. And then we got both of them. But now the offensive line is aging. It's slightly aging. And now I'm like, oh, man, this is one of those opportunities. We got to take advantage of this opportunity while it is, because next year, that line won't be able to plug the holes like they're plugging them now. And they're trying tooth and nail to stay as healthy and fight through the pain and play now. But it's at that point now where we were like this, and now we're starting to go like this, because without that offensive line giving Dak that time, now we got a problem, and it's starting to go back again. And Jerry needs to go back and say, you know what? Let me improve that offensive line first thing in the draft. And I just wish Jimmy was a strong consultant in our draft room, because he knows what kind of offensive lineman or players to get out there. I know that's not going to happen, but I wish Jerry would say, you know, when we draft, Jimmy, you come in here, you help us out. And I know you still have that eye for players that we would need, because if we don't build that offensive line and fill those holes from these players that are starting to age, we're going to start seeing this again.
Yeah.
And then we still have to play. I mean, we still have to pay the Diggs, the Michael Parsons, and all these players that are superstars now. So we need to do it before we get to the point where Jerry can't pay them. And now some of them start to leave. And here we go, 87, 88, 86, right back at that same era again.
Yeah. No, we don't want any of that. We're trying to stay positive with the
Yeah.
Cowboys. We're sticking with the 90s. You're killing me over here. I'm trying to build you guys up, and you're breaking me down. I'm trying.
Jimmy Johnson was a football mind. You had a football guy making football decisions, and that was the difference versus a business owner making football decisions. So
Right.
Well, and the funny thing is, there was a question about what was your greatest memory as a Dallas Cowboy fan. As for myself and Greg and definitely Tuck, and I could be quick with it. The easy one is always a Super Bowl, but I'm going to tell you this: 1991 Thanksgiving, Emmitt Smith had a huge game, and to me that was the coming out party to me for the Cowboys. And they didn't win a Super Bowl or any of that, but to me that was the coming out party. Hopefully I got the year right, but I'm older, so things happen. But it was that one year with Emmitt Smith, and to me that was one of the best moments just that I can think of without saying a Super Bowl being the obvious one. It was when I knew the Cowboys turned the corner. I don't know if Kelly or Jay Tuck or Greg, if you got anyone in the 90s that kind of stuck out to you.
For me personally, man, my best friend, like I said, I didn't get to watch a ton of Cowboys games in 92, the Super Bowl, I was hooked, but my parents were Cowboys fans. I was basically born into Cowboys Nation, so I was always a Cowboys fan. And one of my best friends growing up, still one of my best friends today, was a 49ers fan, and that was always our biggest nemesis. And and that was who we had to get over the hurdle with in the 90s. And now it's almost kind of coming full circle. Now that's like the nemesis we've got to get over now. But that NFC Championship game in 92, and then to follow it up, the NFC Championship game in 93. I got to talk so much smack to my best friend because we watched those games. We got to watch them game, and I remember just being able to, run around. So we got y'all. Because the 49ers were, there was a team that, even being young, I knew about the 49ers, and I knew about how great they were and the dynasty that they had. So that was for me, was getting over that hump with the 49ers and just being able to beat that great team, because as a kid, all the names, the names of these superstars and stuff. And so running down the list of the names that the 49ers had, and to see the Cowboys be able to go in there and smack them around a couple of times, that's always very, very great memories for me of the early 90s, those Jimmy Johnson teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm spot on with Kelly. It's the conference championship game versus San Francisco 49ers. Now, I know a lot of the young viewers, they probably don't understand there was a game back in the day called Pogs, right? And I remember my best friend, we had these NFL Pogs we used to play, and he had a whole bunch of 49ers Pogs, and I had a bunch of Cowboys Pogs, and he was trying to get me to be a 49ers fan. It's just like I couldn't do it. But, back then it was just how the Eagles and Cowboys fans are kind of back and forth. That was the 49ers and the Cowboys fans. And it was just a back and forth rivalry. So I would go over to his house to visit. And, his dad was a huge 49ers fan. So it's just like, why are you wearing that stuff in my house? And, it was just a back and forth, man. But to get over that hump, to beat them, the jerseys, y'all know I love the big throwback jerseys with the big stars on it. Like, that is the reason why I'm a Cowboys fan. It's just, I saw that and it was just like, I just became fascinated. And that's when I really got hooked. Like, I knew about the Cowboys. I was kind of into the Cowboys because my mom, was trying to raise me into it. But when I sat down and really watched that conference championship game, that's when I was like, I sat down. I was like, no, I'm a Cowboys fan. I can go back, go back to school and be like, nah, So I remember, if you guys follow me on social media, I always wear the Troy Aikman throwback jersey with the turtleneck with the logo athletics, like with the shark tooth hat. Like that was my very first thing I wanted for Christmas, was the Troy Aikman throwback jersey with the turtleneck and the shark tooth hats. That's why I always wear it for like Thanksgiving games, because that was symbolic of me becoming the official Cowboys fan on my own.
Yeah. I love those jerseys. I got the Emmitt Smith one. We're missing. Somebody's got to get the 88, so then we can get a picture together.
Oh, I got it. I got the 80. I mean,
you got to give it to somebody.
I got a whole closet full, man. I can't. My wife probably needs to stop buying those things. Good. But yeah, man, it's just those jerseys. It's just bigger than life, and
it's great memories. And we're gonna get into '93 because there was some interesting things that happened in '93. But there's one more. We got a couple more messages. Wanted to get this one out to for Jimmy Johnson.
What Jimmy Johnson did with the Dallas Cowboys was legendary. He took a team from 1-15 to a world championship, 2 world championships. And he basically, what he did is molded into a championship team that lasts all the 90s. So he deserves to be in the Ring of Honor, and he deserves all the accolades that he get, the Hall of Fame, the Ring of Honor, because he is one amazing coach.
And that's what, and Jim Jeffcoat was one of the holdovers from the Tom Landry era. I mean, he was probably, I think obviously Michael Irvin was there a year with Tom Landry before Jimmy Johnson got there. But I mean, Jeffcoat was there in the early 80s. I think 83 was his rookie year. And he played all the way through, 2 of the Super Bowls. And I think he left, went to Buffalo. Big mistake. We're talking about Jeffcoat when it comes on the show. Why would he do that to us? But we love him. And he's another very underrated guy for the Cowboys. And I think that's the one thing I loved about the team of the 90s and especially on that defense. I remember they had like no Pro Bowlers, one year. They had no guys get the Pro Bowl, but you had Tolbert, who was just, he did the dirty work and he did a lot of the stuff on the defensive end. And obviously with Haley there on the other side, that was a good tandem. And they just came in waves. With Jimmy Jones he was one of those guys. Camp always said you can get about 15 plays out of him from the U, but they'd be impactful plays. And Leon Lett, Russell Maryland, who again doesn't get a lot of the credit because he was played at a position where you didn't. Almost like a Mozzie Smith, right? The stats aren't going to be off the charts, but it's what he's going to do. So let's give Mozzie a little bit of time to, show him a little grace. But just the thing that Jimmy Johnson did. But in the 93 season, there was turmoil. You had Emmitt Smith that, was holding out. He wasn't holding out. He was not under contract.
Right.
And they were, and Jerry was quick to, play hardball with him. And one of the running backs they drafted, and I'm hopeful to get him on the show because I really love to pick his brain on it, was Derek Lassick. Not only because he beat the hell out of our Hurricanes in '92 in the national championship game. I still haven't gotten over that one. George T can tell you that for sure because I bring it up to him every time. But he was put in a very bad situation. So no Emmitt Smith. The team goes 0-2. Jerry figures out better get something. Charles Haley throws a helmet through the wall that almost hits Jerry Jones and everything, all this other stuff. And Jimmy was frustrated. Everyone was kind of frustrated to kind of get Emmett in. He comes in and the team goes 12-2. I mean, that's pretty damn impressive down the run and obviously going to back-to-back. But, I mean, share your thoughts on no Emmitt Smith. And that's my argument to you guys. Everyone says Emmitt Smith is overrated, this and that. But when Emmitt Smith didn't play, we didn't win.
Yeah, look at what did that O-line do? Like anybody can run behind that offensive line, but we tried it and it didn't
That's
work.
what everybody said.
Yeah.
Everybody used to say the exact thing. Man, with an offensive line like that, I can run through that offensive line. I said, go ahead and try it one time. But it started to show that the business side of it started to raise its head and was about to contaminate and taint that team. And once the business side starting to show where Jerry was kind of sitting back and reluctant to play these guys, especially the ones that really made an impact, right then you can see the cracks in the walls starting to happen. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't long after that you start hearing the rumbles between him and Jimmy Johnson, and it was all ego. It was all ego. And I'm like, oh, man, here we go. Something told me this dynasty was too good to be true because I start seeing the cracks. But we managed to hold off. And once he came back, man, the motivation and the confidence and all the players, and they realized what he brought to the team. And they said, okay, now we're back on track. Now let's go out here and kick some butt and let's do what we normally do. And I was so afraid that we were going to lose him he was going to not sit out the season or the massive trade. And I'm sitting there saying, man, don't start contaminating the team this early. And ever since then, to this day, as much as I admire Jerry Jones, I stand on this. It seems like every season there's one thing that he does that sabotages our success. Every season there's one thing that happens that you can count on. Something's going to happen to sabotage our success. And it kills me when that happens. So if we could just go back and look back at the glory days of the dynasty, because we were a dynasty. Now, only a few dynasties existed. If we can look at that and say, man, if we could just only get that blueprint, even with this new generational type player, and mimic that, could you imagine what we would be today? Because, man, when we won that first Super Bowl, and then next thing you know, the second Super Bowl, I'm in Korea. And I'm up at 3 a.m. driving. I'm driving from a place called Gwangju. It's called the Gear in the Rear, all the way up to Kunsan Air Base, so I can watch the game there. And Air Force Times, they had the big party, and they televised all of us watching the game. And I said, man, we won this one. Air Force they need to send me overseas again for the third one, man. Maybe,
that's what I was saying. Were you
overseas
in 90? Were you overseas in 95 for the Super? Were you in the military?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I retired in 2008.
All right, I need you to get back over there.
Yeah,
I know. That's what I was
Can you do another tour?
Like, man, they need to send me on another assignment.
Maybe, hey,
send me another
Greg.
country and let me watch them. I was so happy, man. And then the third one, of course, I'm at Robins Air Force Base, Georgia, and all the family from Birmingham came and all the friends from Birmingham. Man, the house was loaded. We had pallets and stuff laying there in base housing. We had parties every day and building up to the Super Bowl. And then, you know, all of a sudden I was like, oh, man, here we go. Look at this. Look at this brilliance. Yeah. Look at this dynasty, man. We are on our way.
Well, I was just gonna say, man, Greg, I know you put on the full uniform and stuff on Sundays, man.
Yes.
Maybe you need to fly over to Korea and put on the full military uniform and watch a game in Korea. You know, watch a few over there. Stay over there for just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Same full table and everything, man.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Listen, all we need is about 6 more games. Just 6 games overseas. Put the Super Bowl in the bank, Greg.
Oh yeah, man. I'll be watching the 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning too. I said, yeah, we're gonna watch that Super Bowl. He did it again.
Well, you know, the interesting thing with the 93 season, and I don't know if you guys, you know it or not, in the back-to-back, there was a lot of things that happened. Obviously, the Emmitt Smith holdout. You had the separated shoulder, right, going into the playoffs.
Yep.
In the NFC Championship game, our quarterback got hurt. I don't know if you guys remember, Aikman got hurt, and we had a backup that had to come in and kind of hold everything together. Actually played pretty well, threw a touchdown. I think it was to Alvin Harper, and basically sealed the deal. Do you guys remember that?
Because Troy got concussion, didn't he?
Yeah.
Which game are you talking about?
In the NFC Championship game in 93, Troy Aikman got hurt, and our backup quarterback had to come in. He threw a touchdown. I mean, held on. We were winning, but he held on, secured the victory. And there was question on if Aikman was going to be able to play in the Super Bowl. If not, this guy would have had to play. Do you guys know who that quarterback was?
Was it Bernie?
Was it?
No,
That's
it was
right.
No.
He
played with the
Bernie Kosar.
Bernie Kosar.
Bernie Kosar.
Bernie Kosar. So reached out to Bernie Kosar, and he wanted to send a message. So this is, and a lot of people forget how important he played an important role. But this one to me gets me a little teary eyed because it's a great video from Bernie. So check it out.
Hi, Bernie Kosar here. I couldn't be any more honored, humbled, and excited to be wishing you congratulations, Coach Jimmy Johnson, into the induction into the Cowboys Ring of Honor. I can't thank you and Jerry Jones enough. You know, I sit and I think about you every day. I look at my cranium, feeling shots from behind me here. But I look at this football from the NFC Championship game, this Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl ring, and the Wheaties Championship box. And at low points in my life, when I was released by the Browns, Coach Johnson and Jerry Jones, you showed such love, trust, and respect in me and confidence in me when other people didn't, to have me come down and lead your football team. I'm so proud to have played just a small part in that, but what you guys did for my confidence and your belief in me at that time of my life is absolutely one of the main reasons why I've never quit, always wanted to be successful, and keep wanting to make a difference. So on a special day where you're getting inducted into the Ring of Honor, God bless you, Coach Johnson. God bless you, Jerry Jones. Thank you for everything you guys done. God bless you. You matter, and go Cowboys.
Yeah, man, I'm a
Ah,
Yeah.
man, that's special, man.
yeah, and I mean from the U, so it was good. But him and
Yeah.
Jimmy
From the
Johnson.
That's why I kind of knew. Right? I was like, Mike is leading somewhere, so I was like, I knew they had to be.
But again, I think it goes to the testament of great coaching. I mean, you think about the challenges. The '93 season, to me, the greatest. That to me was the greatest season for the Cowboys because everything of the adversity. You're talking about trying to repeat, which is hard to do. Not many teams do that. You get the Emmitt Smith situation. You get the injury at the end where they got to win, and Emmitt Smith basically carried them on one shoulder in the final game of the season because they needed that bye because they were banged up. And then, of course, in the championship game, Aikman gets hurt. You don't know, what's going to happen. And thankfully, he goes in there. Emmitt Smith, leads the Cowboys to Super Bowl. Aikman didn't have his best game. I still think he was.
Right.
I think if they were in concussion protocols, maybe in today's game, he probably maybe not even played. So it wasn't. But that's just, again, what great coaching, leadership. And if it's the one thing that was evident in every person that we've interviewed, and I always tell people, I don't like to self-promote, but if there's two videos that we did interviews that if you haven't watched, I beg you to do it. If you don't know the team of the 90s, is Dave Campo and Moose Johnston. Kelly and I had them on the show, and it was so insightful. And a lot of it was about Jimmy Johnson and the mindset and the culture he created and how we wish we can replicate that and put it in a bottle. But, the one thing is as we start to wrap things up and just get your guys' thoughts on it, it was almost like one of those series. It was over kind of just in a weird way where it left you wondering what could have been. Yeah. And you hear it from Michael Irvin, you hear it from Troy Aikman. How many could we have won? How many of this? And Kelly, I know you got to jump, so I want to get your first thoughts on it. But really, what could have been, man? We just left wanting more. It was like that movie where the ending was kind of weird. Tuck, I know you know all these movies, so you could probably pick one. But it's like, what happened? It's the movie. What was the movie? The series that was really big.
Lost?
No, Back in Time. Like it was the Roman kind of thing, and the lady died, and it was just kind of a weird ending. It was big on HBO. Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Game of Thrones.
It was kind of like that's it. Right. It's over. It just ended so quickly. So, Kelly, what's your final thoughts? I know you got to run, but on the Cowboys and just how quickly it was only 5 years. It was quick.
Yeah. I mean, it's it hurts more now, looking back and seeing how long it's been since we've won that last championship, right? So it's like, kind of right now we're kind of like almost biblical times when Moses is wandering the desert for 40 years without we're ready for some water right now. We're ready for that 6th Super Bowl. But you look back to it, man, and you just you sit there and you think and you wonder if Jerry had it all to do over again, would he do it the same way? Because I don't believe he would. I don't believe Jimmy would. I think they would have put their egos to the side, and I think they would have made things work if they could go back and do it again. And that's what we as fans all wish would have happened, because it broke everybody's hearts, when Jimmy left. It was like, basically the soul of the team was gone, because you have players and you talk about players, who's the leader of this team, who's the leader. Well, you can have leaders on a team, but when when you've got the soul of the team and the soul of the team is gone, which was what Jimmy was, then things start to deteriorate rather quickly. I mean, we were able to see Barry Switzer keep things together, and he talked about, he didn't really mess with the whole chemistry of it. He said, look, one of the interview that you had with him, he kind of talked about the biggest thing he did is it wasn't broke, so don't try to fix it, right?
Yeah.
But that can only work for so long, because again, Jimmy was the heartbeat and the soul of that team, and when he left, we just kind of saw what happened, and we haven't been able to put that in a bottle. You talked about if you could put that in a bottle. I mean, if you could put that in a bottle, I'm pretty sure Jerry would sell his soul to get just a little bottle of that, and let Mike McCarthy just take a few sips of that bottle right there and get that going with his team. But yeah, it's something that's very hard to duplicate, and to have a dynasty like Greg had talked about, a dynasty. There's not very many teams in this NFL that can look and say that they had a dynasty, and this Cowboys team is one of them. And that '90s team was a dynasty, and it was a dynasty because of Jimmy Johnson. And, and for that, we'll always be grateful for the memories for it. And, it was something special to see, man. And yeah, absolutely. Wish we could have kept that thing going and got at least one or two more, but, it is what it is, and we can look back on now and talk about it like we are today, and remember with fond memories the great memories that he brought to all of us, that brought us all together in this podcast tonight. So, man, I'll always be forever grateful for Jimmy.
Yeah, no, well said, well said. I know you got to run, Kelly, so we appreciate it. I know you're out of town traveling, but we'll see you Saturday at AT&T. We're gonna be live.
I will be there.
I want to say
All right,
something.
K9.
I want to say something before Kelly leaves. So I know that you, Mike, you said you guys don't self-promote, but kudos to you guys, because I saw the clip of Dave Campo going on the DallasCowboys.com interview and mentioned the Cowboys Cave. That just shows the power of what you guys are doing, man. So keep up the incredible work. We'll talk. We'll have all day tomorrow to talk, so we get there in Dallas, man. But
that's right. I'm looking forward. I'm definitely looking forward to linking up with you boys. I'll see y'all out there Saturday. I'll be there. So thanks for everybody tuning in to the chat. Greg, it was always great seeing you, my man.
Good to see
we'll holler
you,
at you
K9.
guys soon. All right.
Take care.